So good morning, everyone. This is Alan Lusk. I'm on the board of the Friends of Hagerman there at the National Wildlife Refuge in Sherman. And I'm hosting today's second Saturday program. These programs are brought to you by the Friends of Hagerman organization, which is a nonprofit. And I've posted a link in the chat to where you can sign up as a member if you're not already, and that'll help us continue to provide these programs. So I would encourage you to go check out our new website, and if you're not already a member, to consider joining. All of this helps support the programs there at Hagerman, as well as the new education pavilion that you can see some photos of there on the website. So I would encourage you to check it out. We also have a photo club for those that are interested in photography. You can add that to your membership for an extra $5 at any rate. But fortunately, we have a great program today on hummingbirds, and I'm going to turn it over to Wayne Meyer, who's on the program committee, and he will introduce our speaker today.
Thanks, Alan. It's my great pleasure to introduce to you Bert Garcia. Bert has been any number of positions on our board of directors. He's had a very distinguished legal career, both in North Texas and in Puerto Rico. And last January, he was able to give us a talk on bluebirds, and this month he wanted to do hummingbirds. So take it away, Bert.
Thanks, Wayne, and thank you, Alan. Yeah, Wayne is correct. I have been, since I retired from the Department of Justice, one of the first things I wanted to do was get to know Hagerman National Wildlife Refuge better and indulge my long simmering interest in photography, which I have done out there, but it didn't take them long to draft me into other positions. And as Wayne says, I've done several things out there, continue to be quite interested out there. I was out there yesterday taking pictures of Big Boy as it came by Meadow Pond on the west side of the refuge. Today, Susan and Wayne asked me to do a presentation on hummingbirds, which through my photography, I've gotten to know a little bit about, and I did a little research. And that's what I hope to present to you today, a program, or my program, on hummingbirds, which I style Nature's Marvel, because I hope to convince you that they are truly nature's marvel. They are unbelievable little birds, unbelievable little creatures, and are terribly, terribly interesting if you learn about them and get to know about them. So let's go. Well, they are tiny, pugnacious, jewel-like little marvels. They belong to the avian family Trochilidae. And I'll let Wayne correct me if I'm not pronouncing that correctly. The closest family to them is the swifts, and they're teeny tiny little creatures weighing as little as 2 grams, and some of the bigger ones up to 20 grams. 1 ounce is a little over 28 grams. So that kind of tells you the size of these little animals. They are teeny tiny. They have long tails and small saber-like wings, which provides them a lot of agility in the air. The saber-like wings are capable of producing lift both forwards and backwards, which makes them little avian helicopters. So let's go through some superlatives about hummingbirds. And I stress, only some superlatives. They were too many to include here today as far as I'm concerned. They are, as I said, the smallest birds. A bee hummingbird is the smallest of hummingbirds, weighing less than 2 grams. In other words, you could mail 16 of these little critters first class using only one stamp. The bee hummingbirds weigh less than 1 penny each. If you have a penny in your pocket, take it out, put it in your hand. They weigh less than that. That is, the bee hummingbirds do. They lay, as you might guess, the tiniest eggs. They lay generally 1 to 3 eggs in a typical clutch, and they're about the size of a pea. The nest itself is about the size of half a walnut shell. I tried to get one for today, but because of the status of, there are several at the visitor center at Hagerman, and I have held them. They are unbelievably small. And then imagine 3 little eggs in there. Nests are usually woven from spider web and plant material. There's a photograph there for you to look at. That's what they look like. They are really marvelous little nests. As I mentioned before, they are truly the avian helicopter. They are able to power stroke both up and down, which gives them the agility in the air. Here's one flying upside down. They're the only vertebrae capable of sustained hovering. They can fly backwards and upside down. One of the things that wasn't mentioned in the Marine Corps, I was a Marine Corps pilot, and so I understand a little bit about flight, and this just fascinates me, that they can hover, that they can fly backwards, etc., like a helicopter, really. They have been clocked at 30 miles per hour in sustained flight and over 45 miles an hour while in courtship, because they're in a hurry. And they can fly nonstop from 18 to 20 hours straight without stopping. They live live in the fast lane. A ruby-throated hummingbird's heart beats from 225 beats per minute at rest to more than 1,200 beats per minute while they're flying, and particularly while they're diving. Wings beat more than 70 times per second and flight to over 200 times per second while diving, which presents a photographic challenge, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a little while. But unfortunately, they sleep on the job. They're one of the few birds known to go into a state called torpor, which is kind of a deep hibernating type sleep, where their metabolic functions are slowed to a minimum, about 17% of what it normally is. And the body temperature is lowered and kept very, very low. They go in and out of this torpor at will, and it is said that they might starve to death while asleep if they didn't do this. Their metabolic rates are so high, they burn up so much energy that they could starve to death if they didn't go into this torpor state and conserve their energy resources. And they're also not very social. They're pugnacious and feisty. If you want to see fights, put up a hummingbird feeder and you'll see them fight over the food. The reason being because it is so important for their survival. Without food, they'll literally starve to death. So they're very aggressive around the feeders and around flowers. They chase each other off so they can be the ones to eat and survive. Males and females do not pair, and the female is left to tend the eggs. As I said, the competition for the flowers and the nectar in the flowers is unbelievable among them, so they fight over it. By the way, these are not hummingbirds you're likely to see. They are long-tailed sylphs, which primarily exist in the tropics. But this is the picture I found of them fighting. Actually, that's a male and female fighting each other, probably over food. So let's talk about species. There are over 350 species worldwide, and they're all in the New or the Western world. There are fossil remains of hummingbirds in Europe or in the other hemisphere, but there are none existing currently in anything other than the Western hemisphere. And they range in migration from Tierra del Fuego to the south to Alaska in the north, and they migrate. So they fly long, long distances. Most of the hummingbirds are found in the jungles of South and Central America and in southern Mexico, but they do migrate up here during the summertime. Species in the United States, most are in the Southwest, primarily in New Mexico and Arizona, but also in Texas, particularly in the West and Southwest of Texas. Most likely, these are the species you're most likely to see in Texas and New Mexico and Arizona. Riveles, blue-throated hummingbirds, on and on. These are the 19 that you're most likely to see, although not in Grayson County. In Texas, there are about 19 species normally occurring, and they winter in southern Mexico and Central America, but they come up here in the summer times. They're here right now, actually. I was telling Alan that as I'm sitting here looking out my window, I just saw several hummingbirds come to my feeder out on my porch. The three probably that are more of most interest to you and most common in Grayson County are the ruby, and kind of in the order in which you're most likely to see them, are the ruby-throated hummingbird, black-chinned hummingbird, and the least likely you are to see is the rufous hummingbird. Here's the rufous. The males are almost, as you can tell, the male's on the bottom in the photograph, and almost entirely orange, particularly around the head and back. The throat is iridescent, and this is something that's unique to hummingbirds. One of the few birds that has iridescent feathers. They can look from red to orange, depending on the way the sun is shining and hitting them. If you're trying to identify and look for the orange on the sides and the tail, particularly on the male, the bottom bird, you can see the orange on the head, throat, sides, and the tail. They're here, they're likely to be here from mid-January to mid-April, and then again from mid-June to mid-November, and then they migrate away. Second, you're most likely to see is the black-chinned hummingbird. The male on the right have purple and black throats and green upper parts. The dingy white belly, as you can see on the male. They tend to pump their tails more than other hummingbirds. So if you see a hummingbird pumping its tail quite a bit, it's likely to be a black-chinned hummingbird. But then again, look for the head and throat, which is black and purple. You can distinguish the males and females mainly by throat color. As you can see, the females don't have much color on their throats. And they're here from mid-March to September. And then the third one, and the one most likely you are to see, is the ruby-throated hummingbird. You can see the male on the right has the ruby color on his throat. Again, this is the one you're most likely to see here. Red and black throats, greenish upper parts, and dark tails. They will most readily come to water feeders and flower gardens. So you'll see them a lot around feeders if you put them up, or around flowers if you have them around. Again, they're here from late March to September or early October. They're here now. Let's talk a little bit about feeders. Generally speaking, it's good to keep your feeders up from mid-January to mid-November if you're trying to attract all three of them, because they'll come in and out. One thing about feeders, clean them. It is very important to keep them very well cleaned. And second, which is a misconception, the color of the nectar is not necessary. You're likely to find red nectar if you buy it commercially. I don't, I make it myself, and it's not necessary at all to put red coloring in your water. Clear water is good enough. As to feeders, Perky Pet 16-ounce hummingbird Oasis with an ant moat is one that I might recommend. The ant moats are important, at least to me. I have trouble with ants on my feeders, and I've not been able to find a suitable ant moat, which you put at the top of the feeder and keeps the ants from crawling down and drinking out of the little spouts. As to nectar, I make my own again. I use 4 parts water to 1 part well-dissolved granulated sugar. Again, do not put dye in the water, And it's not necessary to boil the water, although I do, it makes it easier. But as long as the sugar is completely in solution, that'll do. 4 to 1 is the appropriate mixture of sugar to water. I make like a quart and I keep it in my refrigerator, and I clean my feeders every 3 or 4 days. And I clean them well. I clean them in hot water with lots of soap. And I even have a long handled brush to get down into the container and clean it out as well as I can. Again, keep it well cleaned and keep it free of mold and mildew, which will grow in the sugar water, particularly around the edges. And then finally, be sure and get all the soap off the feeder when you wash it. Rinse it out very, very well in hot water, and then finally in cold water to get it as clean as you can and to get rid of all the soap that you can. Plants, if you're interested in plants that'll attract them, they're obviously nectar producing plants. Good to have trumpet-shaped flowers oriented horizontally or downward. They like to drink up or sideways rather than down. So like trumpet vine flowers are very, very good for that. Insect attracting plants with large flower heads is good. Specific food plants that I found the list of is any native sage, such as autumn sage. Trumpet vine is my favorite, and it kind of grows wild here and can be a problem because it can take over. Crossvine, coral honeysuckle, Texas lantana, Turk's cap, yellow bells, flame acanthus, and native hibiscus. I am not a plant expert. Some of you may be, and if you want to talk more about that when we're done, that would be good. But this is the list I found is to be good. I don't plant plants for them, but I do have trumpet vines around the house, and I do see them at the trumpet vine flowers quite a bit. Now I'm going to take a moment of personal privilege and brag a little. I told you that my interest in photography, and if there are other photographers online right now, Alan and Jeff come to mind, but there are probably a lot more of you. But you know, as a photographer, that one of the things you want to do is take a hummingbird and stop its wings, which is not easy. It is difficult to do that. It is one of the aims of most photographers is to take a hummingbird and be able to stop its wings, which beat so fast that it's difficult with today's cameras to do that. About a year ago, a little over a year ago, shortly after the pandemic started, I got to go on a trip with my favorite photographic instructor, Brian Laughlin from Austin, to Fredericksburg, Texas, to a hummingbird ranch, so to speak. They had hundreds of hummingbird feeders, and we went there specifically to take pictures of the hummingbirds. But instead of doing it with just shutter speed, which, as I say, is very difficult unless you have very, very, very bright sunlight, we did it with light, with speed lights, 3 on each feeder, and stopping them with lights as opposed to shutter speed. I'm going to take my personal privilege and show you a few of the photographs that I got to take. I'm kind of proud of them. I hope you like them. This I call Big Boy. It's a black chin, as you can tell. And one thing I might note about this photograph is that you notice that we taped over most of the spigots, so to speak, to attract the hummingbirds to that one spigot which we were focused in on. One of my better photographs. This I call All Mine. Again, look, the aim here is to stop the motion so that you can count the feathers. And generally speaking, you can do that. And also make the eye bright. That is an aim of photographers when taking bird photographs, is to make the eye bright and clear. And he is saying, this is all mine, get away. This is probably my best, and I call it Every Feather, because I think you can count almost all the feathers on this bird Again, being very possessive over the food source. It's his. And then finally, what I call crazy trio. My instructor, Brian Laughlin, says this was my best because as a photographer, it tells a story. They are black-chinned hummingbirds. The male is already at the feeder and two females are behind him trying to get him to get out of the way. The one on the extreme right, as you can tell, is almost upside down, but waiting her turn to get to the food that she needs so badly. Crazy trio, I call it, and I like it. I hope you do. Now you knew it was coming, a quiz. So get ready. Alan, do you need to do your magic somehow? Hello?
I'm ready. You can go ahead and get bring up your first slide, and I'll bring up the poll question.
As I recall, these are 9 questions coming up. All the answers for all of which were in what we just talked about. So Alan, I think, is going to present something to you as I bring these up, but here are the questions. Oh, I am so glad to hear thunder. It looks like it's about to rain. The closest family to the hummingbird is a bluebird, swallow, swift, or mockingbird. Again, the answer was in what we just talked about. What is the closest family to the hummingbird? You want the answer now, Alan, or later?
No, let me give people a chance to answer the question. We've got about 65% of the people that are answered, so I'll give them another second or two here. There we go.
91% were correct. Second question. The bee hummingbird weighs less than A, 1 ounce, B, quarter pound, C, 3 ounces, D, 2 grams. %83% got it correct.
2 grams.
Congratulations. There are over black species of hummingbirds worldwide. 350, 500, 19, or 27. $350 was a correct answer. 77% got it correct. There are about black species of hummingbirds in Texas. Answers 10, 19, 3, or 24. Okay, but the correct answer is 19, and 71% got it correct. There are black number of species of hummingbirds commonly seen in Grayson County. 5, 7, 10, or 3. Correct answer is 3, and 85% got it correct. What kind of hummingbirds are these? Black-chin, rufous, or ruby-throated?
So Bert, can you move your poll out of the middle of the screen there? It's showing up as blank black box.
How do I do that?
Just grab it and move it.
I don't see my cursor to grab it.
Okay.
So the correct answer is ruby-throated, and 98% of you got it correct. And what kind of hummingbirds are these? Ruby-throated, black-chinned, or rufous? Correct answer is black-chin. 94% got it correct. And what kind of hummingbirds are these? Rufous, black-chinned, or ruby-throated? There's only one answer left.
Kind of cheating.
Yeah, 98%. And so I leave you with this. If I can do this, and you might have to endure a short commercial here because I'm going on a live.
Imagine a diet-free and exercise-free weight loss method so powerful it could help you lose 40 pounds in just 4 weeks.
Here we go. That's what we're looking for. Enjoy. If you get these many feeders out, this may be what you get. And they are just beautiful.
Okay, Bert.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. Great program. Anybody got questions, they can unmute and ask or put something in the chat. I'll ask the question for you if you want to put it in the chat. I was checking to see if we got any questions so far.
Hey, Alan?
Yes, Mike.
I'm going to put in a plug for the Davis Mountains Hummingbird Celebration. If you want to see about 9 or 10 of those 19 that Bert mentioned, go out to Fort Davis and attend the Davis Mountains Hummingbird Celebration. It's in August. In fact, I think it may be this week or next week, so you're too late this year. But I've been twice, and I've seen 9 of those 19, not counting the 3 that we get here. So it's a great event to go to. They have field trips up into the mountains, and anyway, I just recommend it if you can get out there in August.
Yeah, that's a good program. I know one of our past speakers, Sean Fitzgerald's got a place up in the mountains, the Davis Mountains down there, and he's always showing great pictures of hummingbirds that come to his place up in the Davis Mountains. So great program.
They get the same ones, some of the same ones they get in New Mexico and Arizona there as well.
Yep. Well, and I understand from some of the folks that have been down to Big Bend recently, they've got a fair amount of rain down there and everything's pretty green and blooming and cool weather. So that would be great if you can head down that way. There's a question for about feeding the babies. How long do the parents feed the babies when they're in the nest there? Do you know, Bert?
I don't know that, but I assume they do. Wayne might help us on that.
Well, they're typically in the nest for about 11 to 14 days, and the mom will feed them all of that time. And then once they leave the nest, they follow her around for a while, and that varies a lot, both between species and between individuals. One important thing to remember about feeding babies is they need protein, not just sugar. And so mom has to go out and catch literally thousands of gnats to feed her kids.
Yep, that's interesting. I got somebody posted here that the Hummingbird Festival down there in the Davis Mountains is the 19th through the 22nd and is already completely sold out. So, other questions, comments? There's a lot of praise out here on a great program, Bert.
There's a question there now from William Miller.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just wondering, what do they actually need for nutrition besides sugar water? That doesn't seem to be very good nutrition overall.
I couldn't hear the question, but I think what he was asking is, did they eat anything other than nectar? Yes, they will eat bugs, as I understand it, although by far nectar is their preference because of the energy it provides.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, somebody that joined late was asking about whether they needed to dye the nectar, and no, you don't have to do that. Just clear sugar water is the preferred method for feeding the hummingbirds.
Yeah, as I said, I'm not saying it's harmful, but it's not beneficial. The coloring is not beneficial at all. As I understand it, the reasoning was that red attracts them. It does not. Now, it may attract bugs. So the red color may attract bugs, which may attract birds to the bugs, but the coloring of the nectar itself has nothing to do with whether they like it or not.
Yeah. Whitney shared that there's a great book out there called The Gift of Hummingbirds by Cy Montgomery. Talks about hummingbird rehabilitation. Is pretty amazing, so you might check that out. Somebody, Parna, asked about, are there any natural predators for the hummingbirds?
I see a question out there that do hummingbirds harm each other in their aggressiveness? I'm not seeing them harm each other. I'm not read of them harming each other, but here's what I will tell you is I have been attacked by hummingbirds. As I change their feeder, they're so aggressive that they've actually hit my cap while I'm taking the feeder down or putting it back up. They are terribly aggressive. They are small. And so they don't have a whole lot of weight behind their blows, if that's what you choose to call it. They're just aggressive and they just chase each other around a lot.
Yeah, do you know if they have any natural predators? I think somebody mentioned here that praying mantis have been known to ambush them at flowers or feeders.
If as I understand it, the praying mantis is the only thing that might attack them, although they will attack praying mantises also.
They will get caught in large spider webs. So the golden orb weavers that we have around here, for instance, will catch hummingbirds. And they will try to eat them. The bird's just not very big, and so it gets caught in that web and can't break loose. There are other things. Oh, goodness. There are other things out there like sharp-shinned hawks will take them. Most of the other hawks are too big. So there's not a lot, but there are a lot of large insects like praying mantises and spiders and things like that.
Yeah, somebody mentioned, Sue Yost mentioned that cats, if they're in your backyard, outdoor cats will.
Hey, Alan, this is Whitney.
Yes, Whitney.
I know a lot of bird watchers that have had roadrunners wait next to feeders and catch the hummers near the feeders. So they're pretty well known to do that as well.
And Cindy asked about how long is the lifespan of a hummingbird?
Well, most of them don't make it to a year, but we have some records of hummingbirds that got banded and recaptured 20 years later. So like most birds, most of them die within a year from predators or starvation or whatever. But if they make it to a year old, then they probably will live a while.
I read something about that too, and I agree with Wayne. I think that they've been recorded. I remember reading 17 years as how long this hummingbird lived. 20 wouldn't surprise me, but it's not common. As Wayne says, they generally die fairly quickly.
Yeah. Esme asked that she joined late, but when do they normally arrive in the North Texas area?
Well, I'm not going to remember my dates, but it's generally good to keep your feeders up from February through late September, early October.
Around here, most of them arrive in March, but as long as there's feeders up, they can stay a long time. So yeah, October, even November, you can still have feeders or still have hummingbirds. And I remember last winter, somebody here in Denison had an Anna's hummingbird stay the whole winter at their house.
Yeah.
Here's what I would add. I have heard it said that it's good to take your feeders down at the end of the season to force them to go south. That's not true. They'll go south when they're ready to go south. And nature tells them when that time is. Taking feeders down doesn't help them. Actually, they have to eat a lot as they prepare for the migration because they burn up a lot of energy.
Okay. Any other questions for Bert or Wayne on hummingbirds? If not, we'll go ahead and wrap up the program today. Again, if you would like to support more of these second Saturday programs with Hagerman, if you're not already a member, please join membership. I'll post a link in the chat to where you can go sign up to be a friend of the Hagerman supporter. And with that, we'll also be posting this video out on the Friends of Hagerman website. So you can check that out. It'll be posted out there in the next couple of days. There again, I thank everyone for attending. We had up to almost 65 people join today, Bert, so that's a good crowd for today's program. Seeing a lot of thank yous in the chat now too as well. So great program again, Bert, and we really appreciate you taking the time out of your Saturday morning to present this program to us.
I'll end on a good note. It's raining outside and I love it.
Send it down south. We can use it here in Dallas for sure. All right. Thanks, everyone. And I will go ahead and close the meeting at this point.